Welcome to the Wazari Ippon podcast. I'm your host, Chris. My usual co-host, Path, is continuing to travel the world, so he is not on tonight. And this is also the first video podcast that we're doing. It's usually audio only. We'll see how this goes, and maybe we'll continue. I can convince Pat to do video in the future.
When you have pretty people like that, of course.
Yeah. So tonight I'm joined by my guest hosts, who are both my senpai in the New York dojo, Senpai Damian and Senpai Luigi. Both are accomplished tournament fighters. So the topic for tonight is exploring what it's like to be a fighter in a world tournament. And in the case of one of the guest hosts coming back to coach in one, because it is now 2023 and probably in November of this year, although the date hasn't been set yet, the 13th World Tournament for the Kyokushin Kaikan, or the IKO 1, will be happening. So without further ado, I would like to introduce my guest hosts. So Damian, if you want to go first, just give a brief history of your maybe tournament background and what world tournament you fought in, and Luigi, you can go after him.
So Chris, I believe Luigi and we actually met around 2007. That was
Yes.
a preparation year for the 9th World Open. However, the story goes back a few, maybe back to 2004, 2005, and just like everyone else, it starts at the dojo. You just come in.
Mm-hmm.
You're scared to death because you could feel the energy in the dojo. You could feel the tension. But it's a wonderful experience. So yeah, it started off very simple. Just wanted to become stronger, wanted to become more flexible, wanted to meet people, and everything else just kind of snowballed into fighting.
Mm-hmm.
You look up to your senpais, you look up to your sensei, people that are have a better technique, are stronger, not just physically but mentally, and you're just you kind of you develop your competitive spirit, and that's how it starts, that's how it begins, and that's how it started for me. That's how I took my I remember asking Shihan to participate in at some point. And actually, it was very early on in kumite classes on Saturdays.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a little hesitant in the beginning, but then I kept asking and bothering him, and he finally said yes. And at the time, it was I would say maybe 10 tournament fighters at the time.
Within the dojo.
Within the dojo.
Yeah.
This was the old dojo on 5th Avenue and 30th Street on the second
Mm-hmm.
floor. Beautiful place. I think we all remember it. But yeah,
I came in the second. I came in like a year after you guys moved, so I was in the old new dojos on 39th Street.
Yeah, so
yeah.
These are the days where you actually had a full-time uchideshi in the dojo.
Wow.
Live-in instructors that kind of just lived in the dojo and taught all the classes and pushed all the students. But the head coach back then was Sensei Goto. He was the mastermind of all the coaching and tournament fighting, and basically he kind of just took me under his wing and pushed me in that direction. And this is how it started. It started with small tournaments, like an inside dojo tournament, just like everything else. And then it just kind of grew into I don't think it was All American Open right away, but it was at the time. I think we used to travel to Canada, to Montreal for a North American Championship.
Oh wow!
And that was weight class tournament that was held in March, and I believe that was my actually very first tournament that I participated in Montreal. Yeah,
I think they still run it, although Shihan Gilbert is no longer in the IKO, but that is still a big attraction for sort of the, I guess, non-IKO1 people, at least in the Northeast, or especially like some of the Shinkyokushin and the Kyokushinkan people from the US still usually go up to Montreal. At least that's what I'm seeing on Facebook. But yeah.
Strong,
I mean, go ahead, Luigi.
Strong Kyokushin in Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
There is a strong tradition over there.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, you took that right out of my mouth. I was about to say that a lot of good fighters actually came from Canada, Montreal, and to include a few that we competed against. Muhammad Cheek. And back then, I remember Johnny LeBlanc, I think he's one of the branch chiefs right now.
Yeah, he's a branch chief now. Yeah.
Mark Berg, he was very strong. I think that's the west coast of Canada. So yeah, it was great going there and challenging yourself was a great experience. Scary, of course, at first, but you grew from that. You grew from that, from North American Championship. You grew, and then you would participate in All American Open, which was like a mini world.
Yeah, it's a mini world tournament, basically.
And if I can say something about growing, it's not just when you compete in a kumite, it's not growing just for the next kumite. Once you fight bare knuckles without any protection against another man who literally wants to knock you out, nothing else in your life seems that difficult. Whatever happens to you at work, at home, or stress, there is nothing like somebody who really wanna knock you out in front of hundreds of people. So it really makes you grow in human point of view.
Sure. So I guess if we can use that as a transition, Luigi, can you talk a little bit about your tournament accomplishments?
Oh, my tournament accomplishment. First of all, my biggest accomplishment of tournament is actually to step on the tatami the first time and fight. I remember the first time I went to the dojo and I met Damian actually that very first day. And the reason why I entered the dojo that day was because when I was a kid, I was always into karate. I started as a karateka. When I was 6 years old, I started doing Shotokan, I did Shitoryu, and then I completely stopped. And when I start karate again here in New York, I was already 20 when I joined the dojo, and I was a kid struggling with minor addictions. So I had like a lot of personal problems at the time. And I don't know why, instinctively, it was my instinct that brought me to start karate again. And I knew a lot about Kyokushin, so I decided to actually join the Look for the Dojo. I remember I had this paper that a friend of mine printed it from a printer back in 2006, 2007, with the address written by hand. So I show up to the dojo with the paper and I started training. I was smoking. I was definitely not doing a very healthy lifestyle. And in some ways, the Kyokushin saved my life because it's really changed my approach to living. And I remember, I know a lot of people who are my same age, what I grew up with, and I met here in New York. And after all these years, they kind of lost their path. And for me, Kyokushin really helped me to always stay inside. I don't even want to say discipline, because of course it's discipline, but it's more like loving for the practice, for the discipline. And talking back to those days, I remember Sensei Goto, if I can say like a little story. I remember I was still a white belt, probably after 2 months. It was the first time he came to me, was like, take out your shin guards. We're gonna do sparring, no shin guards right now today. And I remember the first time that I really did this bone-to-bone sparring against somebody. Regarding my tournament history, I wasn't that young. The first time I did some internal dojo fight. I did a goodwill tournament many times and promotion test, fighting very hard many times. I got knocked out many times. I remember the first time I got a liver shot in the dojo was the first time I got hit in the liver. That it was worse to get hit in the balls. And I couldn't believe it. I was on the floor and I was like, I can't believe it. This is worse than the ball. And actually, I don't remember who, but told me like, yes, that's worse than the ball. And it was like very, a big discovery for me. But the first
I've gotten hit in the liver by both of you. It's not fun. So.
It's not fun. It's like your liver contract.
Yeah.
And you can't do nothing besides going to the floor and just scream. That was incredible. I couldn't expect that. I really, it was
a very humiliating experience.
Very humiliating experience. Worse than the kick in the ball. I can't. But anyway, the first time I stepped on the tatami, I was already a grown-ass man. I wasn't a kid. It was actually 10 years ago now.
Wow.
In 10 years ago, in 2013. And I remember I was struggling with the idea because I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I want to do it, but no protection. What if I get hurt? What if the guy's too strong? I don't feel ready. And I remember I asked Shihan Gorai, and you know how he talks to people. He was like, oh, Luigi, how old are you? I'm like, Sean, I'm 26, almost 27. He was like, oh, if you don't do it now, you're never going to do it. So if you want to do it now. And that was actually the most convincing and motivating thing that he could tell me. And from that point, I did it. I started the preparation. And I remember like when the tournament is like, it's not just the tournament. It started months in advance. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, that's happening 3, 4, 5 months over there in the future, but that's happening. So you have this countdown, the starting of 2 months, 1 month, 20 days, 19 days, 18 days, 17, and the adrenaline start growing inside you. And, the thing is happening. And I remember the first time I was like waiting for my turn and Damian was coaching me, was actually behind me. Damian is always very motivating because he's always whispering in my ear like, you're going to kill him. You are too strong. And he's actually very helpful because he's calm, he's inside your ear and he's telling you this stuff that really makes you strong. And I remember I saw my opponent warming up on the other side and it was the longest 2 minutes, 3 minutes of my life waiting for the fight. And then when you start, everything disappeared, the fear, the scaredness, whatever is happening inside you is disappeared. You're so involved in the experience you're living that is like your mind is completely empty. I think that's actually one of the true essence of the Zen, because you're so focused that you hear your coach screaming to you, do this, do that, move, and you are so involved that you're not afraid anymore. You're not anxious anymore. You're just doing, you are action. And after the first kumite, I remember I didn't realize how long it was. It could have been 3 hours or 3 seconds. I didn't remember that. And that was actually my first kumite experience. And I remember we mistake the time. Daniel, and I remember who said, okay, it's just 2 minutes fight. And I remember he started saying, okay, Reggie, 30 seconds. And we start, and the other guy too. And then these 30 seconds were not, it was, okay, no, Luigi, 1 more minute, another minute. Because we messed up the time. I remember that was my real first kumite.
Yeah, that's very similar to, I think, when did I fight? 2017, I guess, was my first and so far only full contact tournament. But
that was in LA, correct?
That was in LA at the US weight category tournament.
Sorry, I didn't.
We have a beautiful picture together, you and I, like from the warming area.
Me and you?
Or yeah. I'll forward it to you.
Yeah.
We're all like in smiles.
Yeah. So, but I remember like it's very similar to at least my sort of very limited experience, but it was the longest day. I didn't sleep the night before. I some of our dojo mates were eating and I didn't want to eat lunch. And then I ended up fighting Daniel, one of our dojo, one of my senpai and one of our dojo mates for my first fight. And, so that was sort of good and bad, I think, because, it was good that I knew someone that I was fighting, but also, although he probably wouldn't admit it, but I imagine that he didn't try his hardest against me, which, I am grateful for, that I am still alive. But I just, it was just scary, but coming off of the tatami for the, after my first fight, I cried. It was just all the emotions of that day, and all that buildup just came out. Like I lost my contacts. I had to run upstairs and change my contacts. And then I realized that I had to fight again. So I had to put them in, and we had to run back down. But it's an emotional thing that maybe people don't really talk about.
One thing I realized is not gonna change with time.
Yeah.
Like those adrenaline, those fear is part of how we're made as human beings. There is something that is happening which is dangerous. So all our system is activated to feel the danger, feel the fear. So in our culture, fear is something you should be ashamed of. No, you're something you don't have to show fear. You have to always to prove. While actually, I think is wrong. I think for a fighter, fear is your best friend. You need to let go.
Embrace it.
Exactly. Embrace it like a waterfall. If you start thinking, oh, I'm afraid, oh, something is wrong. Why am I afraid? Why am I so afraid? Oh my God, that's no good for you. You're just to embrace it. Exactly. That's just going through you. That's happening to even the best fighters. I heard that Capanazze, which is one of the best Kyokushin fighter in history, is always throwing up, or I don't know if that's a story or not, but before a fight he really feels the emotion. Even now, there is one of the most seasoned fighter in a history. So I think it's part of what is it. It's not easy, of course. Just saying it is easier than doing it, because when you don't sleep, so you wake up.
I think that turning fear into like you said, embracing it, it will help you perform actually, because it could either paralyze you if you're overwhelmed by it. It will paralyze you, but embracing it, it's the best thing you could do as a fighter, and it will just help you stay more focused, stay sharper. So it's part of the game. It's fear, it's part of the game.
Yeah, and I think that is part of Kyokushin in general, right? That accepting that pain, and accepting
starts with
starts
in the dojo with
exactly.
So moving, so sort of back to, sorry.
They asked me once, I don't remember who, they asked me, okay, what is the first word that come in your mind when you think about Kyokushin? I thought pain. Pain is the first word. Pain on the training. Pain in the area. It's pain. It's pain, but it's good pain. I love it.
But what made you, for both of you, what made you stay, right? Like for me, I did Taekwondo as a kid, and then throughout my teens, and then I did a little bit of judo in college, but not much. But for me, it was, I was in a very low place in my life, and I needed something challenging. And that thing was Kyokushin. And I think sort of accepting that it was hard, and accepting that, but it was there are things to accomplish within it, did make me stay, and has made me stay for, this will be 12 years now. Luigi was in my first class, and Damian, I met you shortly thereafter, I think. But yeah, so what, understanding that obstacle of, this is gonna suck. Like, this is not, although it is enjoyable in a certain way, but what made you stay in Kyokushin, and why didn't you sort of do other sort of martial arts aside from Kyokushin? You know, what made you stay with Kyokushin?
Damian first.
So I think challenge of it, like just the fact that it is like when you first start, you're really you're at the bottom, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're a white belt, and everyone else is just pretty much just you know, much stronger than you, faster, has more reaction. So to me, it was more, you know, I challenged myself. I enjoy that challenge. I enjoy growing, because you're really, as you dedicate time and energy, you notice growth.
Mm-hmm.
And that growth, it's a source of satisfaction. You become stronger, faster. You want to get to that top. You know, but as you inch closer towards that top, it just becomes even more and more difficult, because now you're up against people that are, you know, you're evenly matched or even better or more talented than you. So there's always, nothing is easy in Kyokushin. And I think there's a beauty to it. You know, it's hard work. There's no shortcuts.
Mm-hmm.
No.
It's beautiful. I mean, you know, besides the fighting aspect, it's a beautiful martial art.
Mm-hmm.
You're in control of your body all the time. Or most of the time.
Not when you get swept by Damian,
Yeah.
but it's all right.
So I think for me, it was what kept me going was the challenge. But you know, it's also it's everyone around you. It's such a nice place to be. You know, you get your ass kicked, or you get, you know, you work out like crazy. I mean, to the point of, you know, blood in your urine. Let's put it this way. And you know, infections and bruises and broken bones, and you put your body through a lot. But at the end of the day, there's someone next to you that's sharing the same experience.
Mm-hmm.
You're not alone. There's someone else who's doing the same thing, who's pushing as hard as you are, maybe even harder. It's pushing you in a process, and then, you know, the class is over and you go to Katsuhama and you enjoy the nice dinner. with a big
Katsuhama
beer.
is essential.
Mama, we should
Katsuhama is
go.
part of it.
Guys, let's go next week, please. Let's go. So actually,
yeah.
for me, if I can answer to the same question, is like what keep me going is the fact that when I realized after many years of practicing Kyokushin that without Kyokushin there is something missing. Every time I'm in the time of the year of my life or something happened that I'm not consistent in my practicing Kyokushin, there is something missing. There is something that I'm not proud of. There is something I'm not complete. While when I do Kyokushin, when I feel that I'm in a time right now, for example, that I'm training very hard, I started in September to really pushing myself, and it's been 4 months where I'm like really training very hard, and I feel complete. I feel I was talking yesterday with a friend who told me this thing. It's like, you know, it's let's say you go now. I'm gonna fight next in 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I'm gonna fight in LA, and let's see if I win the tournament. Is that really the cake that I'm aiming for, or the cake is this? This is the cake. The fact that I wake up every day and I'm happy to go to training. I feel super healthy. I haven't been 176 pounds in 4 years. I'm in great shape. This is the cake. Of course, if I go in lane and win, that's the cherry on top of the cake. But that's not the cake. The cake is this. And when I'm not practicing, is like I feel always there is something missing. And regarding the growth, which Damian taught before, like yes, year after year you grow. Now, for example, I'm a black belt, but for me, it's worse. If I
Pressure's on.
fuck up something in training, I remember a couple of weeks ago, I fucked up a kata in front of Xian, and I was so ashamed of myself. I still think about it for days. I was like, dude, how could I do something like that? So the pressure is bigger. You have a bigger pressure on yourself. And it's true that it's nice to train with the stronger people that push you, and people around you really push you a lot. Yesterday we did a very hard class. Shihan was making us doing like crazy basics, and I was doing 2 classes in a row, so I was getting very tired. And I remember I look in the eye at some point doing my kiage, the Australian guy, what's his name? Andrew had fire in his eyes. He looked at me, gave me this fire look, and I kind of fire up. He was like, oh, look at this guy. And I was pushing myself to the limit, because just, we push. And so, yeah.
Cool. Yeah. And I think that is, although I would say that maybe the feeling of something missing when you are not training can be found in other martial arts. I think that feeling of perseverance is built into Kyokushin. I think, that also that just us, right? How we greet each other, how we respond.
For my personal opinion, what you say is like, I have one part of this answer which is very personal, and one part that is, I think, is objective. Personal thing is like, I love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, of course. I love Muay Thai. I've been practicing even a couple of years ago, but for me, it's like the aim of my life is like, when people come to me and tell me boxing, punching is much better than Kyokushin, Muay Thai is more complete than Kyokushin, I'm like, it's true, but my goal in life is became good at Kyokushin. I don't want to become good at boxing. I don't want to become good at Muay Thai. I don't care. For me, that's the thing. It's like, because it's my thing. Objectively, that's my personal answer. Objectively, I don't think people who never practice Kyokushin and really understand how tough and how difficult Kyokushin really is. And some people really can't do it, I think. It's like, there is no music. You enter over there is a crazy guy screaming at you. It's very Budo. It's like a real Budo. You go, you aim, you sit down, Cesar, close your eyes. It's like, it's something that some people in modern culture, they just can't do it. It's too tough. That's what I really believe it's too tough for most of people.
And so that what I was saying was, in the greeting that we use, os is a contraction of 2 Japanese words. It means, the Japanese words are oshishinobu. That is like the general thought of what os could mean. There's other uses for it in Japanese, but oshishinobu, if you translate it, it means to push through hardship or to persevere. So the way we greet each other is like, get through it, like, just figure it out. So I think that's built within the system, which I think is a good thing, because it not only presents like, from the first time you encounter it, is that this is going to be hard, but also that you can persevere through whatever will be in front of you, but yeah, so let's, if you don't mind me sharing with the audience, is that both of you were not born in America. So so I have 2 questions. The first one is, have you trained in your home country? Is that where you started, or have you gone back and trained in your home country? And what is that experience like compared to New York or America in general? And my follow-up question to that is, if you've ever thought about it, is there a little bit of a desire to compete for that home country instead of USA. Anyone can start.
Damian, you go
I'll
first.
jump right into it.
Yeah.
So I came to the US when I was 16, and I stayed for like 2 months. I was off from school, and one of my best friends, his brother used to do Taekwondo, and I was always active, whether it was soccer or even try boxing, and I think out of curiosity, I asked him, I said, hey, just, I know you do Taekwondo. And like, can we do like a training together? Like, can you show me some stuff? So yeah, he was like showing me, basic kicks and movement. I think we were hitting a target, a pad, and we were pretty annoying doing that. But I kind of liked it. I enjoyed it. And I remember going back to Poland, and my town, actually, where I originally come from, there were only 2 schools. One was Shotokan and the other one was Kyokushin. And by chance, just by pure like destiny, you call it destiny, I just picked Kyokushin, and I had no idea what Kyokushin was about.
Wow.
But I'll never forget my first class, because I could barely walk. And I said, but I had this thing in my head. I'm like, I'm coming back. I'm like, this thing's not gonna break me. Like, I can't give up, So that was my that's how I kind of started in Kyokushin back in Poland. So I trained there for 2.5 years, and then I moved to America, and I had a bit of a pause here. I kind of like moved around to like through different schools. I was going to school at the time, so I knew about Kyokushin Dojo in Manhattan. My old sensei even said like, oh, when you go, like, please get in touch with Shion Garai. So I actually visited the dojo, but I didn't stay. And I started doing like other things like Muay Thai, some kickboxing, Taekwondo, and then I came back to Kyokushin. Then I stayed in Manhattan Dojo. So did I have the desire to compete representing Poland? I didn't. I trained with a very much international presence. So we had people from Japan, Poland, Bulgaria at the time, a couple guys from New York, and it was just such a tight camaraderie that everyone was just like, we're competing for the dojo. It was like anywhere we went, it was like, even whether it was Canada, even LA, we always represented New York Dojo. And I think that was that's how I felt when I fought in Japan. I felt like I was there representing New York Dojo. And yeah, that was it. Yeah.
It's just like in terms of the fighting for your home country, it was just, so I was born here. I'm from New York, from America, and if I was living somewhere else and I had to compete for that school, and I don't know how I would feel if they listed me as part of that school. So it was just a question that I always had. Yeah, it's a very good question. But I think it becomes it's more of like your personal experience, because I was not part of like the Polish national team, where they do camps, and they do fighter specific training where they just bring competitors and they focus on like, okay, this is the Polish team, like this is the team. Like my team was my New York, my dojo. That was my team. Like I shared blood, sweat, and tears with members of that dojo. Mhm.
And that created that bond and that feeling that, hey, I'm not really like I didn't have that emotional connection with anyone else but members of the dojo. So that's how I felt when I fought in, whether it was in Canada or Japan. I was like, okay,
Nice.
I'm part of New York City dojo.
Cool.
Okay.
How about you,
So,
Luigi?
For me, actually, okay, I was the opposite story of Damian. In my city, there is one of the most important Kyokushin dojo in Italy. But by chance, I picked Shotokan. I was 6 years old. I picked Shotokan. I was very far away from the dojo, so I started doing Shotokan karate. And I did also some even small competition when I was 6, 7 years old. Nothing crazy. Then growing up, I was in high school, and I met this guy, and we became very good friends. He was one of the best teenager Kyokushin fighter, and I was very impressed by his capacity. I never saw him throwing a punch. I never saw him throwing a kick, but I saw him jumping almost 1.5 meters from standing. He was bench pressing over 110 kilos. We're talking about a guy who was 16 years old. He was a monster. So I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to be like that. So
What's your secret?
Exactly. He was like ripped. He was a monster. I do Kyokushin. That's what he told me. So, but I started Kyokushin here in New York. That's where I really was ready to do it, because at that time my head was like in a completely different place, very far away from martial arts. So I started here in New York, and I went back several times, training in the Kyokushin dojo in Italy. And I really loved it. I love the teacher over there, the Shihan in Italy. They are fantastic people. They are my people, so I love it. But my dojo is the New York dojo. It's where I really was born as a Kyokushin practitioner. It's here where I have all my memories. Here where I also shared the pain of the training, and where I remember leaving from Astoria under the snow, running to the dojo from the bridge, doing the class, running back in Astoria. It's like where I have all these unforgettable memories. Cooking the raw salmon by myself at home at dinner, getting sick, going to the emergency room. It's like that's what all of this stuff happened for me. Like New York for me is home, and I totally. I'm totally agree with Damian when he says that regarding the sharing, the tears, and the growth, and the happiness, and the traveling, and then the tournament. And I never taught myself regarding representing Italy, because I always taught myself I do represent Italy. So wherever I go, of course, I fight for the national teams, United States. I fought in LA but I'm Italian, so I always represent wherever I go. I represent my country anyway, because it's in my blood. So I never taught myself regarding being in the Italian national teams or whatever. I don't think that's right. I don't think, because I belong here. So it's not right for me. But I always told myself, let's say tomorrow I win the world tournament, I'll be an Italian who won the world tournament anywhere.
Sure. Yeah.
Representing New York for the national team. But listen to my thick accent, that's of course is an Italian winning the world tournament. So I never taught myself that. And yes.
Cool. All right. So I guess that's an easy transition to the world tournament itself. So can you talk about a little bit about your experience in Japan? So whether it's your first, initial thoughts, your overall time while you were in the country initially, like I guess for both of you, no, Damian, you've been twice now, so and we'll talk a little bit about that. But just the country itself in general, like tournament aside, what did you experience?
Damian first.
So I mean, it's been a long time, Chris, but I can definitely, that was 2007, and I was a scrawny kid, maybe 100, and I don't know. I think I might have gained. I think I strive to gain some weight for the World Open, because I was, in my mind, I was competing against top fighters in the world, and no weight class. So I
Yeah.
think I moved up from like 180 to maybe like 190. But I was in good shape. I was in really good shape. I trained with Sensei
Remember,
Goto for a long time, and we stayed after classes and we trained one-on-one, and we did everything right. We did we did a full preparation, and you know, I think I was in my I can't do the math right now, but you could do the math for me.
You were in your
I think
20s?
I was in my late 20s. I think I was maybe 26, 27.
yeah, something like that. I remember.
And you know, I shaved my head, and you know, I look like trouble back then.
Exactly.
But yeah, I was excited, Chris. You know,
Mhm.
you cannot, like, I was proud of myself. I was excited to go to Japan. I felt accomplished. I felt special that I was able to go there. It was you know, for a kid that came from a small town, it was like a dream come true.
Mhm.
So that excitement and that good feeling that I was special kept me going and kept me like just moving in towards that direction.
Mhm.
So it was my first time in Japan. I landed in somewhere in Tokyo. I can't even remember right now which airport it was.
Yeah.
You know, and I was alone. And I just knew how to get, you know, I figured out how to get to Metropolitan Hotel, because that's where all the fighters were at the time
Mhm.
staying. And
Which
I
is
think
blocks away from the current Hombu
the-
and also the old Hombu. So it's a good area in Ikebukuro.
yeah. So it was me and Michael Martinez. Michael Martinez was already
Big
there.
Mike.
Big Mike. I think he one of his girlfriends, international girlfriends, picked him up. He was already at the hotel. So yeah, I met up with him, and we went through the whole process, checking in, weighing in. You know, that is another part of like the tournament that, you know, it's very stressful. Like
Mhm.
like checking in and
Right.
seeing everyone there, and you're like, oh, there's Lechi Kurbanov, there's Everton Teixeira, there is, you know, Kentaro Tanaka at the time, and there's Glauber Feitosa standing next to him with Francisco Filho, and you're like,
Yeah.
you know, you're kind of like, you're like, okay, here I am, you know,
Yeah.
like this kid that's trying to, but you know, it you go through like a range of emotions, like different things, fear, excitement, and you know, I think that was like the first time I ever hung out with Alejandro Navarro. He was
Oh, wow.
he was at that tournament. Michael Martinez knew him very well. The story goes, Alejandro drank all his beer when he stayed in New York from his fridge. Mike could confirm that. I kind of believe it, but yeah. So you're, you know, we did the whole thing, weighing in, checking in, and then you're in a mode where you're like, all right, you're actually facing the music. Like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm going to fight. You're
Yeah.
going to fight, and that's the thing that, you know, you learn about yourself. Like, all right, you're here to fight. You have to fight. There's no way. Like, this is why I came here. You know, so yeah, there was a lot of fear and a lot of emotions, but like Luigi described it before, you know, you're kind of you're almost like in a different dimension, but once you step on that tatami and the referee says, you know, Hajime, you know, everything that's it.
Yeah.
You just do it. You just do what you've trained to do.
Mhm.
Your body just you just go for it, you know. And for me, that was the first time I fought World Open, and I think very similar experience to many people. Just like the time, just, you know, it's like you don't realize, you lose that
It bends.
You know, the sense of like, okay, was it 1 minute? Is it 1 hour?
Yeah.
Like, you don't know. And then you're like, when it's over, you're like, okay, it's over. Like, I couldn't even tell whether I won or lost.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was
That's
very,
why you need that's why also you need a very good coach, because I remember once Damian, I was fighting and he told me he's hurt on his leg, and I didn't even realize it. He was the one who told me that, and I remember I was, oh, sorry, he's hurt on his leg, and I was keeping hitting the leg, and I won because that I didn't even realize that I was fighting, and he was the one who was like, Luigi, he's hurt on his leg. I remember that.
yeah. So that's another thing. Like, you know, you're even that the fact that you're, because I fought in, like, I remember fought in Montreal, like I was being coached and I didn't hear the coach. I was so like into like this whole thing experience that I didn't even hear I didn't even hear my coach. And it's funny because people were telling, my coach was telling me, he's like, you're hurting him with your hands. And then I, you know, and I didn't even hear that. And then at some point I stopped like punching the guy with, you know, where I could have probably won, but if I just kept going, but I didn't realize that. So yeah, it's stressful, but it's a beautiful experience. You come off the mat, and you know, lose or win, you had the guts, you had the balls to actually go up there and do it.
Exactly.
You know, you had the balls to do it. You didn't stop. You trained for it. You did. You know, yeah. Was there always a lesson to be learned from it? 100%. And that's just part of it too. You know, that's part of growth. You know, you go, you do something. Whether you lose or win, you sit down and you analyze. Okay, what is it that I did? What is it I didn't do? You know, you talk to your coach. You talk to people that watch the fight. You watch the fight afterwards. You know, people record it. You watch the fight afterwards. You know, you judge yourself. You're like, oh, okay, I could have done this, and then you see the difference between how you are when you're in the dojo, and then how do you actually perform under, you know, on big stage? Like, how does that affect you? Like, was I myself? Was I different? Could, you know, so yeah, so that was my experience. So I enjoyed every bit of it. I have great memories. Yeah, and I wish I would push anyone, actually, whoever, I would want other people to experience that as well. And because it's definitely, it's a journey. It's a journey, and it could be it's a very rewarding journey. You get to know yourself a little better. You get to study yourself, reflect on yourself a little bit. So yeah, it's a positive experience.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
And Luigi, how about your experiences in Japan, and then walk us through your world tournament?
I totally agree with what Damian said. If I can just connect with what he said, regarding also your fighting experience, Chris. Look, it's something that is not everybody can do it. It's like the fact that you also step on the tatami and you did it, you perform, you fought. It's something that is not for everybody. It's not. It don't mean that who cannot do it is a coward. It's not that some people just can't. They are overwhelmed by the stress, by the emotion. They can't manage that. They can handle it. Some people get allergic reactions. Some people, it's like something they can't even control. You know, so it's not for everybody. The fact that you did it is really put you in a very small circle of people who are really able to overdo this enormous amount of stress over yourself for months and hours and minutes before doing that. So you should be proud of yourself.
Thank you. But yeah, or just to sort of follow up on that. Yeah, I'm glad that I did it that one time, and maybe I'll do it again. But yeah, I don't think I handle stress well in my own life. So I think that added sort of pressure is not something that I would rush back to. but I would maybe do it again. I don't know.
No,
Yeah.
I told
Yeah.
myself that's it.
Yeah.
I told myself that's it 4 years ago, and now I want to do it again. For
Yeah.
example, for me, it's roller coaster. I can't do roller
Me
coaster.
neither.
It's
Yeah.
like I can't. I tried. I was crying on Disneyland in Paris in front of kids who were like, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "No, I'm not all right. I'm crying on a roller coaster. I'm not all right." So I can't do that.
Mhm.
But fighting, if I'm 2 feet on the ground, that's I can. So it depends what type of person you are.
Mhm.
And for me, okay, Japan, I was a dream come true going to Japan. It was amazing to be there, to finally be in Tokyo. I'm very really Japanese culture really changed my life. Also for my job, for my business, I'm a designer, and my art was always inspired by Japanese culture in all its forms. I grew up watching a Japanese cartoon, reading mangas. That was all my life. So being there, the first feeling that I had, it was like to a place that I know, like I've been here before, because I've been there somehow in all my memories and all my dreams, in all my drawings. So it was like beautiful to be there. Regarding the World Tournament, I remember the day that we actually march inside the
Arena.
now, 166 people selected from all over the world. And I remember I cried that moment. So the tears was in my face, because I look around and I saw, as Damian said, all the best fighter in the world. And I was like, I'm here among these people. And I was just, a skinny stoner from Italy. And I'm here. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I'm here. This is like, I was very thankful. It was a moment of being really thankful with what happening to me. And I remember I was very concerned too, because I look around and it was like the best fighter in the world. So I was like, shit, this is scary.
Yeah.
And I remember this old fighter who approached me. We were talking about this, and he told myself, like, dude, you, first of all, you don't have to fight them all. That, like, you don't have to all, you have to focus on your opponent. You have to fight this guy. Focus on this. Of course, Navarro is here. You have to fight Navarro. No, you have to fight this guy. You have to fight Kirkov. No, you have to fight this guy. So don't worry, they are here, but you have to focus on your opponent. And also, second of all, they are more afraid than you are, because what do you do in life? I'm a graphic designer. Good. They are professional Kyokushin fighters. So you know what happened to them if they fuck it up against you. So they have everything
That's
to
true.
lose. You have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
You're doing your thing. They have everything to lose, because their life is this. So can you imagine the pressure they have? So
Yeah.
So just do it and see what happens. And actually, it was very convincing point of view, because it's true. These people, most of them, I'm a graphic designer. Damian also has, this is what we do for love. We do for some people. This is their job. This is a professional Kyokushin fighter. So it's not they fight against us like, okay, this guy, I'm gonna destroy them. They are afraid, because it's like, shit, if I lose against this guy, it's a problem.
That's yeah.
So it's a very good point of view. I really like that.
Yeah. So just as a follow-up to both of those, for me, my experience in Japan with you guys and going to the World Tournament in 2019 was a dream come true for me, right? So I, from a very young age, have wanted to live in Japan and to go to Japan, and and I've been lucky enough to have lived there twice before, but I was alone those two times, and my desire to share what I love and what I dreamt about when I was a little kid with my friends during that time there was like a dream come true. That's all I really wanted to do while we were there, and
it was beautiful. Those days in Kyoto. Those days in Kyoto.
Yeah. So sharing that build up, like going to the Isami store and just sort of getting into like the spirit of Kyokushin for that week leading up, and then we did the tournament, and then the week following, with both of you, we sort of bopped around the country But showing Kyoto to you both, and which was sort of close to where I was living both times I lived in Japan. So I considered that like my whole partly my hometown, my hood there. So showing both of you like some local things that are not that touristy was an amazing experience. And I'm grateful that I was able to share that with you guys, and hopefully you got something out of it. But yeah,
Of course.
Oh, thank you, Chris. That was that was an amazing trip. And having both of you guys being able to go out with you, Luigi, and Luigi's wife, it was just great. It was just phenomenal. Great city, great vibe. I enjoyed every bit of it. It's my first time in Kyoto, and absolutely fell in love with it. I would definitely go back. Definitely, if I go back, Kyoto is definitely one of the towns that I want to visit. Yeah,
definitely. Yes, I was very actually. I was very ignorant about Kyoto before going there, and when I saw it and I really discovered what Kyoto was, I was astonished. It's incredible. I thought, Kyoto, Tokyo, they were like, this big, huge, modern city, and then it's not like that. You go to Kyoto, really, I was really shocked by the beauty, by the history, the smell in the streets, the sunset. I couldn't resist to dress like
you got it. You're on vacation.
And so yes, I probably go back for this spring for the Sakura festival. Yeah, in end of April probably. It's not sure, but I really want to go this April. And then, of course, if I'm lucky enough to qualify for the next World Tournament, which I really gonna try, I'm going in November. And November, I'm actually this time planning to stay over a month. If I'm able to, if I don't qualify, I go to watch the World Tournament. We go all together. We stay for a couple of weeks. But if I'm lucky enough to qualify, I'm gonna go and stay at least 1 month and a half. I'm gonna move my job over there just for a month and a half, which is also very important for the business to be in Japan for a very long time. And I want to try to live in Tokyo for a month and a half before the tournament and see what happens.
Good.
You guys are welcome to come.
I would love to. But all right, so
we'll drink a beer, Luigi, from your fridge.
Pull a Navarro. But so all right, so winding down, I would like to talk about sort of the coaching aspect and the teaching aspect. So both of you do and have taught regular classes during the week at the New York dojo, but Damian, you were also coaching our trips to LA, but also you coached Luigi in his world tournament. So as you both can speak to this, but has going from being like a participant in class and a fighter, when you were transitioning into teaching the class, like what was that transition like? Did you have to change your mindset? Did you have to what was that experience for you?
I first of all, I'm very thankful to Shihan Garai that I was able to because I was able to teach classes. It was a great experience. You just develop, you grow as a practitioner. You're when you get your when you train for your black belt, all the focus is on you, right? You're training hard. You're mastering your technique. You prepare yourself physically, mentally. You're become a machine. But teaching will the aspect of teaching will give you a perspective on, you know, on what the actual movement means, how the body mechanics.
Mhm.
You know, prior to that, I don't think I paid this much attention to details. And teaching will make you do that. Will force you to be more mindful of your the simple things, the basics that you do,
Mhm.
the things that you're kind of you grow accustomed to doing without paying any mind to it. So that's, you know, you basically develop a deeper understanding of what Kyokushin is. And you know, as a former fighter, you kind of you remember, you want to share that experience with you learn, you know, when you teach a class, you already kind of know, like, who has that fire in their eyes, who wants
Mhm.
to do it, who wants that, you know. And that's such a great feeling, because you kind of like, okay, let me help you get there. Let's do this together. And and I think that's something that I wanted to kind of give back.
Mhm.
You know, I've experienced, you know, it was a great journey for me. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I would still probably enjoy it if I still had that fire in me.
Mhm.
But you kind of but it's such a great feeling to be able to participate in the development of other people, and watching them grow, and you know, in a way, helping them out, coaching them.
Mhm.
It's just another experience, which is phenomenal, beautiful. You still have the same. You feel as part of you're still part of the team.
Mhm.
You're still part of the team. You still share all the, you know, the blood, tears, and sweat with everyone. You see them get hurt. You see them push through. You see them overcome obstacles, and the mental game, and it's just another journey that I enjoyed very much. So that I'm very thankful to everyone that showed up for team classes, and you know, regular classes. Very thankful to Shion Garai for you know, creating probably some of the most challenging classes ever.
Mhm.
Some
Yeah.
from which we all grew, and
Yeah.
from which we all learned. And there's always some kind of you know, with Shihan, there's always some kind of a curveball. You're like, okay, like, okay, he's going to teach the class, but you're always going to be like, oh wow, he challenged me mentally today. He
Mhm.
challenged me physically today.
I
He's
was
like he flipped me. He flipped my everything that I knew upside down, and I'm like, oh my god, there's still so much to learn.
Mhm.
So yeah, I just, I loved it. I still love it. Um, and
Was there?
I want everyone, and if, again, I would love everyone else, if you love Kyokushin, if you love karate, experience the journey, enjoy it, you know,
And
just enjoy it.
was there anything different or specific that you thought about or tried to implement at the world tournament, like that you didn't do in previous years or something, or in different capacities?
Well, Kyokushin evolved
Mhm.
into, you know, like, when I fought in 2007, the rules were different. Then the rules changed, and Kyokushin is constantly evolving. So are the
Mhm.
fighters. So you're what I realizing that, you know, you kind of like, you actually study the new fighters. You
Mhm.
study what is it that's, you know, what's the game changer now? Where do we have to catch up? Um, you know, it was very, you know, I considered, you know, 2007 to be an old school tournament. You
Yeah.
know, very old school.
In a lot of ways,
then-
a lot of people retired after that world tournament. So
Yeah, and then
that
you
was
see-
a changing of
then-
the guard, sort of. Yeah.
And then you see Tariel, young blood, that was moving in all sorts of angles that, you know, it was a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you see him fight, like he was like, before fighters just kind of like just faced each other, and there was not a lot of movement. There was not a lot of well, in terms of like footwork. He kind of like came into that tournament, and he introduced a lot of movement. And I think that when you look at the modern day Kyokushin, there's a lot of movement now, a lot of footwork that enables fighter to create opportunities, and from a distance, from close quarter. You're allowed to sweep right now, push. It's big. So realizing that you need to study the game right now. It's not what it was 10 years ago. It's not what it's different. It's constantly changing. It's constantly evolving. So it's an ongoing living thing. It's fluid. You need to really pay attention to everything, and mix things up a little bit, I'd say.
Good. Interesting.
Yeah.
Luigi, do you want to talk a little bit about your transitioning into teaching, and a little bit of your coaching experience in
sure.
LA?
I don't have much to say about my teaching experience, but I want just to connect with what Damian said. Actually, I think it's true. Maybe Terrell was probably like the introduction of what we see today. Now, for example, we see a lot of big fighters, super heavyweight, Eremenko, that actually moves a lot, which is something that until 15 years ago, as you said, it was like a sort of old school way to fight. Standing in front of each other with very deadly technique, and you're trying to demolish the opponent. The changing of rules, a lot of people criticize the new rules, like the Wazari, the hit in the face. Some of people say that it's not like Budo as Kyokushin was supposed to be, but in my point of view, I think it makes it harder, because right now a big fighter, a stronger fighter with sides on his side can really lose against somebody who's smarter, smaller, more technical. And this is actually changed the game. Now, even if today, if you're big, you need to be technical too. You need to be able to move as well. Otherwise, you can be in a very bad position during the fight. So from my point of view, I really like the improvements of the techniques, because of course we have to remember, of course it's Budo, but anyway, when you do competition, there needs to be some sort of rules in the competition. Otherwise it's just without rules there is not competition. So I like what they're doing now. For example, they changed something new. Now, before you were sweeping and you get a Wazari. Now, no.
Now you have to.
You need to touch your opponent on the ground. You need to light touch at the body, or even do a face, not touch, just getting close to the face, but do the zanshi. Otherwise, it's not a Wazari. So they did all these things to make it even harder, because they saw maybe the sweeping was at some point getting too easy for somebody to get a Wazari. So I like the rules. Regarding my teaching experience, which is of course nothing compared to Damian experience, I actually started teaching some few classes right after COVID when I was in Italy. Shihan Wakyuchi in Italy made me doing some opening of some of his late evening classes, and then sometimes he was allowing me to teach the whole classes just a few times, which was like a great honor for me, because he was always like, he's a very I don't know how to say, he's a very demanding teacher. So it was always very hard for me to be trained by him, because he was always correcting my mistakes, being very demanding. So I was always very put under a lot of pressure. So the time that he was actually asking me to do the opening of the class, and it was a big honor for me to do that for a guy like him. In New York, I've been teaching some kid class lately, which was terrible because kids is very hard to teach kids compared to adults, because adults, they want to do it. So you teach them, do this, okay. Kids, no. So it's a very, very big problem. Like, it's a very problematic. My coaching experience is not much, but I can say that is, for me, is the most important figure that there is. I completely, when I fight, I need, you know, somebody watching my back. I don't know how to feel. I don't want to be alone in that moment, because I'm alone on the tatami, right? It's just me. But I want to feel the presence of somebody who's encouraging me, is pushing me. I remember last fight in LA that I had in 2019, Damian and Blago both were coaching me. And I remember after the first 3 minutes, we get an equivocate with my opponent. And we start the second fight, and Blago screamed at me, Luigi, don't give up, because he saw something that I couldn't see because I was into the fight. So I don't know, maybe I was giving up, and I got scared. Blago told me that. I was like, maybe I'm giving up. And somehow I found the energy somewhere to keep fighting, you know, because it gave me that input, that alarm. So it's for me, is the most important thing to have somebody who can really coach you. I remember I did coach at the European tournament in Cracovia last year. No, in Katowice, one of my Italian friends, and he had to fight Navarro. So the moment they start fighting, because Navarro is so famous, everybody, all the stadium was screaming so loud. All kids, there were kids next to the tatami. And I was screaming to my guy, but he couldn't hear me because the screaming was so loud. So I was screaming, it's loud, and he couldn't hear me. And there was a big problem, actually, during the fight. He lost. It was a good fight, but he lost. But he couldn't hear a word of what I said. The time, I was counting the time. I was just me. I was giving him the time, and he couldn't hear a word. All because all the people screaming so close to the tatami. So, yes, I think coaching is, for my opinion, the most important figure after the fighter on the stage.
Well, thank you so much, guys, for speaking with me tonight. So just as a conclusion, you can promote anything that you're working on, or if people want to find you on social media or anything like that, feel free to promote anything that you're working on. So
thank you. So because we're talking about Kyokushin, I want to say that this year, 2023, is the centenary of the birth of Sosai Masoyama. And I'm working on a very special design with Half Sumo, which is like my martial arts clothing company. And we hope to launch something very, very special for the Masoyama centenary this year. We don't know exactly what is it, but I want to make this very nice illustration of his the history of his life, and make a sort of art piece with it. But I'm still figuring out. So it's a surprise.
And where can they find Half Sumo? Is it halfsumo.com?
halfsumo.com or Instagram, Half Sumo Collective. So thank you, Chris, for being one of my best partner in this.
Always. So, and Damian, do you have anything you want to share, or nothing? Or?
Definitely Have Sumo. I love the. I actually, Luigi, I have some of your prints here.
Oh,
Nice, thank you.
I love it.
Cool.
No, I would say, hey, whoever's watching it, come to the dojo.
Exactly.
Come to the dojo. Well, the more people we have, we could probably have a full-time dojo.
We're working on it. Finally, the big guy is opening to it. So 2023 is the year. Guys, let's go eat a Katsuhama next week, please.
Yes.
Let's go.
All right. Well, thank you again. And thanks everybody for listening. So, os.